Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're here today with our friend Lesa Engelthaler. Lesa has written for publications such as the Dallas Morning News and Christianity Today, a huge reader of children's literature and proud member of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. Lesa is thrilled to write her first children's book titled Joan of Art, A-R-T, for Morehouse Publishing. Brian McLaren says, exactly the kind of story that kids need. This could be one of those precious few books that parents read to their kids for generations to come. That is really cool. Lesa is also a senior associate at the Victory Search Group, an executive search firm, and has served on the boards of various nonprofits. You can learn more about Lesa at lesaengelthaler.com. Let me spell that. It's LesaEngelthaler.com. So, Lesa, it's so great to see you and so great to see that you've got this book out. Many congratulations.
Thank you. As you know, because you've been a part of the process, it's an honor and it's a big deal, to be able to actually get a book out there. So I feel really privileged to be talking to you about the book. So
Well,
thank you
I
for
was so thrilled that it happened, and so glad that it became a reality.
yes.
So what
Yep.
else would you like people to know about you than what I kind of touched on there?
I think you did great on that. And, yeah, so I think those are wonderful things, yeah, to introduce me. So yeah, it's great.
You live in Texas. I didn't talk about that.
We didn't talk about that. And that is where I live with all that is going on in Texas. So yeah, we live in Dallas, and we have two sons. They actually live here. And then part of which we'll talk about with the book is that we have five grandkids that are,
Yay.
and having them as editors to a children's book because, as you know, children tell the truth. And so, it is better. It's a better book because of them saying, this is boring. Take out that, and yeah, so live in Texas and have, yeah, yeah, for a long time.
Excellent, excellent. So there's kind of two things we want to talk about today. First, of course, is the book. As I mentioned, the title is Joan of Art. Maybe the first thing we should discuss is the meaning of the title.
Yeah, it's so good. It's such a good question. Um, I have been, and I'll hold up the book so people can
Sure,
see.
sure. Please.
So proud of the illustrator that we'll talk about later that I met, who illustrated it. So there it is. There's the title, Joan of Art. So it is a book. Well, this is how it came about. Or, there's always many roads to how we
Sure,
write
sure.
anything, So is that for a long time, as long as I can remember, I have admired, respected, regarded Saint Joan of Arc. And I wanted to be able to, I wanted to make sure that she wasn't lost to the next generation because it was so encouraging to me that someone would listen. Saint Joan of Arc heard from God as a child, as a girl, at 12, if you can imagine, that she was going to win a war, that she was going to defeat, another country. And of course, she was uneducated and, said back to God, I don't even know how to ride a horse. I don't know how to wield a sword, but she kept hearing from God. And at 16, she asked the King of France for an army to go do what God told her to do. And of course, he said no. And she was just so persistent. And she ended up winning the war. And then, of course, was sentenced to death by the other country, and then was actually martyred, at 19. So it's an incredible story of courage. And for me, listening to calling, listening to God's calling, in your life and doing it and the courage. So I wanted children, the next generation and adults to know about her. But my writing friends said, and my grandchildren said, it would be boring or shocking just to tell a story about Joan of Arc. How are you going to handle, the burning at the stake? There's a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah.
so it was in conversation with a community of writers that we came up with this a more fun and modern way of talking about Joan of Arc, and then also blending in the reason for art is that the little girl in the book is named after Joan of Arc, but she wants to be an artist. She doesn't want to be a warrior. And so also dealing with a self-identity and being true self, all these things that we have read about, and try to live into. So teaching kids about being themselves, because Joan of Art comes to realize that her artisticness is who she was bravely called to be, where Joan of Arc was bravely called to be a warrior. And so teaching kids about true self. So that's how I came to that.
Wow.
Does that make sense? I hope that, yeah, makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, no, it is. I mean, it's just, wonderful. And I mean, one of the things obviously that stands out for me is what you said about kind of a group of other children's book authors who kind of, brainstormed with you and encouraged you and, I'm sure helped, give input. That is such a phenomenal group of folks, that you're friends with that, were involved in the Writing for Your Life children's book conferences. So, I'm so glad to see that collaboration.
Yes. And the generosity and the kindness, um, generosity with their time. I'm an unpublished author. They have lives, they have businesses. Um, but on so many accounts, the generosity of yourself, making connections, you introducing me to publishing houses. I mean, this is what, you see the kindness of humanity.
Well, that particular group, I think is better at that than any I've seen. It's just really you all are role models, and I love that it's continuing.
I agree. I'm lucky. Yeah, to be a part. Yeah.
So what's the age range for the book?
So a picture book, which is all things I learned in writing, which I love to learn. So I love that was fascinating because Joan started as a chapter book. So that's the other thing is the genesis of coming to the reality of like Lesa for a first book. A picture book is an easier way to break into the market. Everyone loves a picture book. You and I, we love everyone loves a picture book. And so going to a picture book is about 4 to 8 year old. And that's the age range. And then there is obviously a picture book is for adults for when kids will still let us read to them. That's the lovely thing about a picture book. And so, adults are reading it to kids. And then my 10-year-old granddaughter, reading it to other children. So, it's kind of a picture book is.
So one of the cool things for me about doing this particular interview is that Lisa and I know so many people in common. And so I get to read several endorsements from people who, I've worked with and are friends of mine. Here are a couple. Glennis Nellis says, reminds young readers that you don't have to be a warrior to be brave. Terrence Lester says, teaches children the value of their own uniqueness. Roger Hutchison says, Joan of Art is my story, which is so cool. And then Patricia Raybon says, what a winner. So in your words, what were you trying to accomplish with the book?
Yeah. Such a great question. And I think I talked about it earlier. What I was trying to accomplish was to teach people who don't know about Joan of Arc in a more appealing, modern way. And it is, Brian, it is amazing the children who, I think it's Kate DiCamillo that says that children know that life is hard. They know the hard things. And so, like, I've not had one child say to me, wait, she died? They know hard things. And so, even had one child say to me, that she had relatives that served in the military. And so it was so, like, she made the connection to Joan being a French military leader, and that made her proud. So I just thought, the connections that children make to Joan of Arc is happening. And that makes me so happy because I think it will encourage them to be brave and then to empower. It's been, I think it's Elizabeth Elliot that says we all have one thing, that we're called to do, to say, and we just keep saying it over and over. And so one of my one thing is being true self. I want children to be, if they want to be, I've read it in elementary schools to first graders, and, kids saying that they want to be a football player, that they want to be a librarian, that they want to be solar eclipse chaser. It's
I
incredible.
hadn't heard that one before.
No, one little girl said, I want to be a cake taster. I was like, yes, be that. So for them to feel proud and not ashamed of who God made them to be. And it's coming through in the story because Joan of Art wrestles in the story. In fact, the artist has her in grayscale, kind of black and white when she's dealing with hard feelings. And kids get it. They're like, oh, she's not happy. She's sad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
That was a neat thing to do.
yep. So it's coming across in the readings to kids. They get it. Of course they do. They're so smart. So yeah.
So you mentioned the illustrator is Brooke O'Neill. How did you collaborate with her? How did that work out?
Well, it's finding an illustrator, because actually Joan of Art is my story too. I always wanted to be an artist with a paintbrush. I was horrible at it. And then I realized through my community that writing with my pen, was my art. And so I love art. And so choosing an illustrator was kind of paralyzing to me, because for me, a picture book is about the art, And so I was actually introduced. So this is a community. This came, I think, through Jen Grant, through Amy Alsnauer, I think is how you say her last name, but she is an illustrator and writer up in Chicago area. And this is when I knew it would be okay, Brian, is she wrote a book teaching children about Flannery O'Connor.
Oh, wow.
That's not easy. It's filled with peacocks and beautiful, everything that Flannery was. And I was like, I think she might get this book. And she introduced me to Brooke.
Oh, wow.
I know.
That's cool. That is very cool. I didn't know that story. That's wonderful.
There you go. Yeah.
So, having hung around with so many authors, I know how difficult it is to get a book published, particularly your first book. Right? I mean, so what was your path to publishing like?
Just like everyone else's, I mean, so many rejections. I stopped counting, gracious rejections, and introductions and then rejections and, just so many. And so the good thing for me is that being a journalist, I'm very accustomed to rejection. So, I have, I call them like my badge of honors, that I have rejections from the Wall Street Journal and, I have rejections from Southern Living, I have famous rejection letters as a journalist. And so, but you can think that, oh, this might be impossible. This might actually never happen. And then you have one that graciously takes a chance on you. And that's what they did. They took a chance on me. So,
who is the publisher?
One, yes. So it's Church Publishing.
Okay. Yeah. Morehouse.
Yeah. And then Morehouse is an imprint of Church. And so, again, you just need one person to take a chance. Yeah.
Yes.
So it happened.
That's a well-known publisher, so that's a good one to go with. So
I agree. Yeah, super lucky. Yeah.
So let's shift gears now and kind of talk about careers and finding your next calling. And clearly writing a children's book and doing executive search and serving on the boards are very different things. And, I think you're kind of also thinking about, the future from here. So what kind of process have you found to be helpful with vocational discernment?
Yeah, such a great question. And I'm a learner, so I'm looking forward to learning from what you offer. And I think something that has helped me is, kind of asking, is it this or that? Does it bring me joy, or is it, or the contrast, is it soul sucking? I don't know of a nicer way to say that, but
Yeah, yeah.
is it draining? Is it, consoling? Is it desolation? That whole thing in spiritual direction of, which is it? And of course there are things that, that are boring that all of us do in all of our lives. I don't mean that kind of thing. But I think making these decisions, to do like that you're talking about, to be on a board, or am I going to volunteer with that? Am I going to, even my job is, I do recruiting for nonprofit organizations. So every single day I spend with people who live their lives for doing good. So even the choice of my job is very, of course there's pedantic, regular things to it, but it's very, it fills me with joy to think that I might be helping an organization. So um, I think that's a question I always ask. I wanted to read, I thought about this because I'm rereading a friend of ours, rereading this book. It's so good. So Parker Palmer's,
Oh, sure. Yes.
you
I've
know,
taken many excerpts from that to put on
oh
the Find Your Next Calling blog.
gosh. And I read it, when it first came out because I would read anything that Parker Palmer wrote. And, I was with a friend who's very young in her 40s, and she was telling me, of course I read it, so it doesn't have, it can be read at any
Oh,
time.
yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
it doesn't,
timeless.
yeah. And so I wanted to read something that kind of, I went, oh, that's it from his book. Um, because I think about the next generation a lot and being generative to them. So, what does that mean to be generous with them? And he has a great quote in here, Brian. So he says, psychologist Eric Erickson said that in route to old age, we face a critical choice between generativity, it's hard to say, and stagnation.
Hmm.
You've probably quoted this. It's so good. Generativity means something more than creativity. It means turning towards the rising generation, offering whatever we know that they might find useful, and even more important, learning from them.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think about that a lot, getting involved. The next generation is our hope, and they have got it. They have got it so much better than me. And so offering what can be useful, I don't know, what can you take from me, you know, and then listening to them, you know, what do you need? How can I help you? That's exciting to me in whatever I do. A board I choose to be on, a neighbor that I talk to that's a young mom, I mean, it does, in everything. Yeah. Does that help with kind of,
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, it's interesting how, each of us approach these things differently and the same.
yes. Yeah. Yeah. Like that.
So what advice, do you have for people who are just like considering, kind of going off on their own, whether it's writing a book or being an entrepreneur or what have you?
Mm. What advice? Yeah. I say, what I said earlier, just do what gives you joy. Um, and it could be from small to big, but the world needs a lot of help. So there's a lot to do. And so, and maybe it's not doing, maybe it's being, maybe it's listening. Because in your lane, in your thing that you do, I'm an Enneagram 1. And so I am bent towards that justice, kind of doing things. But there's nine different kinds of Enneagram. So there's nine different kinds of people. And so what you do, like you said, and then what I do makes it complete. But there's so much to do. Um, so I think, yeah, I think we already talked about the advice. Yeah, yeah.
So I know you're right in the middle of a book launch, but can you say anything about any future plans that you have, whether it's additional books or other projects?
Yeah. I love that you're asking, and I actually got to go hear our friend Brian McLaren when he was in Dallas
Oh,
speaking about
good.
his new book,
Oh, good.
it was so encouraging, So, but we got to talk before, and he asked the same question, Brian. Okay, what's the next book? And I love that people ask me that, and so I told him my idea because I thought you just got to run these ideas by people, to
Yeah.
see. And so another one of the saints and I love that he busted out laughing, which I was like, that's the response, you need of like, he's like, I get it. I get it. So I love St. Clair, and she was friends with St. Francis.
Hmm.
And a lot of people don't know who St. Clair is, and they know Francis. And I think that's a shame because I think you should know who St. Clair is, because she was amazing. And so I thought I might try to write an idea of two friends, or Claire, and called Claire and Francis. And it's about a little girl who has a dog named Francis. And the dog gets all the attention all the time, and Claire gets nothing. And so dealing with that whole thing of identity, of someone that what that kids deal with all the time. So called Claire and Francis, about a dog named Francis, and he said there is a whole order of the St. Clairs.
Really?
And yeah, and of course Brian knows one of the nuns in I was like, of course you do. And oh, I can put you in touch with them, and they would love this idea so much, And so I just thought, okay, because you don't want to offend people, you know.
Sure.
But I thought, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Oh,
It's just,
that's
yeah,
phenomenal. That's phenomenal. And I love what, Brian McLaren's reaction was and offer to help. That
yeah,
didn't surprise
of
me
course,
either.
no, not at all. Yeah. So
Oh,
anyway,
good.
there's lots of ideas, and that's what we do as writers, So we have lots of thoughts. So anyway, that's a fun one.
Excellent. Oh my goodness. Well, Lisa, it's so great to hear your new news, about the new book, and many congratulations on that and all the things that you've done. Again, the name of the book is Joan of Art, A-R-T. You can Google it or learn more at lesaengelthaler.com. So Lisa, thanks again, and best wishes with the rest of the book launch.
Brian, it was a pleasure, as always, to be with you, and God bless you on what you are doing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.